Would you consider yourself a high-level entrepreneur? Now, most likely, if you're listening to this, you definitely are. And what I've heard over and over and over again is it's hard to find like-minded people that are like that too. Again, I'm from Maine, so I totally understand how difficult it can be. Thank goodness I have an amazing online community, so I know tons of them. And that is exactly why we are starting this brand new mastermind group with high-level, like-minded entrepreneurs, the ones that you know you can go alongside with that will help move you to the next level, let alone with kick butt coaching from me, because I like to slap you around, both on focus and on strategy. So if you're looking to double or triple this year, which I know most of you are, I want you to go ahead and apply and see if it's a good fit for you. I will totally tell you if it's not and if I wouldn't do it if I were you. But go to eventualmillionaire.com/apply. We are looking for amazing, like-minded entrepreneurs. My previous mastermind members have told me it is life changing. So take the time today, fill out the very quick application, and we'll see if it's a fit. Take care.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and I am so ridiculously excited to have Suzy Batiz on the show. She has an amazing product and company, as I'm sure you've probably heard of before, Poo-Pourri. You can check it out at poo-pourri.com or SuzyBatiz.com. I saw her speak at Capitalism Conference in Dallas, and it was fantastic because her message is so different than what you hear from normal business gurus. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Suzy.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, when I was looking through all your bio and all your info, you really came from the lowest of the low, and yet you're not pushing hustle and grind and you have to do what you have to do. You're actually talking about energy and momentum and breaking patterns. Tell me about why you're shifting things and talking about that instead of grinding and hustling and all that stuff that most of the other people are talking about.
Yeah, well, mainly because when I was 38, I filed my second bankruptcy, and I often call it the luxury of losing everything. And in that space of realizing I'd lost everything, I looked back at really my actions, and I had done everything the way you're supposed to. I hustled, I was full of the grind, just push through, make it happen. If willpower could have made me successful, I'm very resilient from having a hard life growing up. So I had a lot of willpower. And what I realized is if I could lose everything, I might as well have a good time because, just nothing is permanent and nothing is for sure. And I was just done. I was exhausted. And I just said, I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't know what I'm going to do in my life, but I'm not going to do that. So that was really clear for me. So I dropped the hustle.
Just like that, does it ever come back? Because I'm assuming it was a pre-pattern from when you were growing up too, because hustle sort of got you what you lost in bankruptcy, right? How did you actually do it on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think that I'm not sure that the hustle is innate. I think it's something we're conditioned. We're taught to push through. We're not taught to pay attention to our internal guidance system. And really, I'll be honest with you, one thing I've really been tuning in with a lot is we're all just freaking terrified. Everybody's terrified. You're terrified, probably your podcast, this isn't going to be a good interview. Maybe your podcast isn't going to do well. What's that going to look like in the world? What if this Instagram post, me, it's like, oh my God, there's a shadow on the side of my face. But we look at the bigger ripples out. And if you start tuning into those fears or really playing into this really, and not facing the facts that we're actually all just terrified, you just get caught up in the rat race. We're all just running and nobody knows where you're running towards. You're just running. It's like, we got to get out of here. And it's like, well, okay, where are we going and what's happening? And do we really want what we're going to on the other side?
I'm so grateful that you said that because I do feel like we're in this cycle and nobody's really happy. And we have entrepreneurs that are miserable, right? Or committing suicide or in this ridiculously tough state. And it could be technically easier, right? So can you walk us through how you actually got through it? Like any steps or any tips or anything that you had in order to manage that? Because it's still there, right? It's still in our head. We are terrified.
Yeah, and I think the first thing to do is to really face the fact that we're terrified, just kind of really own, like, I'm terrified. I'm terrified that I'll lose my power, prestige, youth, body, all of that, that we're conditioned that we have to be a certain way. So, first of all, fully face it and feel and really feel that terror that kind of is inside of us. And then once you can do that, and the third thing I would say is then look around at reality. Like, I'm going to lose everything. Is that true? And I just sort of look around and go, actually, I'm in a really nice office, today, the sun's shining in. So I just become really present and look at reality. The reality is I'm not going to lose everything today, nor is that even possible. I could post a picture online with a big booger hanging out of my nose. It just did it right now, but my life is not going to be over. That's the truth, right? People may not like it and they may think it's gross, but it's not going to really affect my success. So I think we give things a lot too much power in our minds. Yeah. We think about these things and they become bigger. So when you can really fully face it and feel it, it kind of shrinks it down to the actual magnitude it is. It's like, well, if I think I'm going to, if something's happening in my business, sales are down, I think I'm going to lose everything. I could get into the fear and run like crazy, or I could stop and tune in and kind of go, which is feeling, and go, where do I think I could create more health and more vibrancy in my business right now? So instead of chasing dollars, I really more tune into creative flow. And we just this last month in our company went through a huge purge. I had my feng shui lady came. I had a couple organizers. I had everything clean out every desk, throw away any pen you're not using. Let's donate it. And that cleansing process this month, we had the biggest month in our history. So so there it was the opposite of running. It was literally let's remove. And then whenever you remove, it's like a flow and it's like a dam has been moved in the flow of energy. So yeah, when you start just thinking about that and presencing, it's really easy to go, okay, come on.
How did you know that that purge would, and not as far as like it must result in this, but how did you know that that purge was needed?
I just saw kind of clutter. Whenever I start feeling kind of contained and cluttered, I can feel the energy and I'm like, we need to clean, we need to purge. We have a lot going on, really too many projects. I went even, so we did a physical purge, but then I also did a project purge. I went to my creative and marketing, like what all projects are we doing? Let's cut 50% of them and let's focus our energy on the 50% that really are going to move the needle, because we get caught up doing a lot of busy work in life.
A million times, yes. And then we ignore all the feelings and just keep on keeping on, right? So how did you get better
That's
at
it.
feeling the feelings? Because normally when you say you feel the fear and you go into it, it's usually people assume that's the spiraling, oh no, worst case scenario, that thing. But you're saying feel what the actual sensations feel like. Tell us how you got good at that.
Well, I think you can do both. You can go all the way down into the spiral. The problem is we don't go all the way down and imagine. For example, I think I'm gonna lose everything. Can you really sit there and imagine? Okay, so I lose my house, I lose my cars, I lose everything. I'm laying out on the street, and really visualize yourself like look around and it's like, oh, I'm okay somehow. Like it's all okay. So I would say go into the spiral, but go way into it, right? All the way to the bottom. And secondly, I started working with a somatic therapist about probably 14 years ago. And I remember the first time she said, where do you feel that in your body? And I was like, what body? That was my answer. Like I literally was a talking head, which most of us are. I had no idea that my body was available. So I started, because that's what happens when we are in trauma or when we're terrified. We always go to our head. It's actually a fear strategy. It's a survival mechanism because we're ready to flee, right? And that keeps that mind going. So a couple of things. I started doing somatic therapy. I started meditating and realizing that I am not my thoughts. I can separate from those thoughts. So those two things, and then I've done a ton of plant medicines and other things, over the 15 years. It's a constant journey.
Okay, so I want to dive really deep into this because I've done many of these things also. And I had the
Good.
exact same feeling as you. I was an engineer for a long time, and I was like, feelings are dumb. Like, just so you know, we're computers and feelings are dumb. So I've had to realize that that is not true, and that feeling them, especially because they are so uncomfortable, is not a bad thing, right? So coming from there and dealing with, and I meditate every day too now, but I feel like you have a depth at which you're able to do it more often, cognizantly, right? Because it's almost a pattern that you've created as a habit on purpose. So what
Yeah.
led you to all that? Is it just a constant like, and then I do Aya, and then I do this, and then I do, is it like a constant?
So it's really funny. My sister is now on this path, and I remember her in the past. She said, "You're always seeking. I wish you would stop seeking, and I wish you would be satisfied." And I just always had a head tilt with that. What I've realized is I'm an explorer. And especially when I regain parts of myself, I'm super interested in that exploration. Um, so for me, this is a practice. It's a way of life. It's not something I do for self-care. It is literally my goal is to reach my highest evolution within this lifetime. It's not to be the richest person, right? It's to, if I am talking rich, I'm not talking material wealth. So like the eventual millionaire, we can become a millionaire internally. I actually in my 4-year sabbatical from my bankruptcy until I came up with the idea for Poopery, I found bliss and happiness within myself for the first time in my life. So I didn't need money to prove who I was or prove that I could be happy. Then I started my business. So I always had that point of reference. So I usually tell people, I'm taking people now through an abundance course, and we talk very little about money. Abundance actually means plentiful and a lot of something. So you can say, I'm abundant right now. You have abundant air, you have abundant sunshine, it's sunshiny here. Like look around you, look at the abundance. So to say I'm not abundant is not true. And wealth actually means well-being. And currency actually means flow of energy from person to person. So when you look at these terms that we all think mean something important, if you just take abundance, currency, and wealth, those three together are basically the flow of energy for your well-being, and it's plenty of it.
I love all of this. Okay, so when we're talking about what we do on a day-to-day action-oriented type thing in your business, because it's one thing to be like, oh, I can focus on the abundance and what I already have personally, but when you're actually already in your business, and do you give up the money and you go after impact, or do you go after the spiritual side and you want to feel whole without the money first? Like, I feel like, what do we focus on when you actually already have your business right now?
Well, money is never going to get you anything other than a little bit more ease, possibly. So stop chasing that. Just stop it. Because you're never, ever, ever going to stop chasing it. And you're going to be on this perpetual peloton that doesn't ever turn off. You're just going to keep running. So stop that and start looking at your internal state. What I always say is that your internal world actually manifests in your external world. Abundance is our nature. It's our birthright. And if you can focus on your internal state and that state of being, into removing anything that's keeping you from being afraid, right? Or that's making you afraid. Right. So start removing that. And when you start removing it, you become stronger within yourself. You become more intuitive and you're able to navigate the business. So when some scary business thing happens, and I still get scared, this is a practice. Okay. I lost millions of dollars last year on an auto unit. And it was this big story that competition was coming out and they were going to do one. So we were in this big race, and not just the money, we lost a lot of time and energy. So I was able to And, I generally do it and it's like a yoga pose. One day it's perfect and the next day I can't even get my balance, So I don't want to tell you that I am the master of this. Mastery has sharp edges and it takes a very fine tunement and precision. But I definitely know how to flow with my business. So I would be diligent and vigilant about removing anything that is keeping you out of being in tune with yourself, because you are the only person that knows. If you created the business, you're the best, you're the expert, right? And you're going to know more than anybody which way it needs to move. So when competition comes out, like this big scary voice, which I've seen, like in what I love about plant medicines are that it's like training ground for life, right?
Yes,
it's no different than this scary monster that's that you're facing within your subconscious mind. You're able to kind of go, yeah, wow, I feel scared. Competition's coming. I could lose everything. And when you can recenter and make decisions from that place, it's a lot stronger decision rather than, oh my God, everybody buckle down, competition's coming, let's all run. And everybody's running. And It's like, it creates a lot of chaos, and that energy doesn't actually result in very much, in my experience. I prefer being in creative flow. I prefer us holding our grounds, doubling down on what we do really well, which is our creativity. We're not trying to be like anyone else. So I've gone through a lot of things in my past, but trying to, oh, this is what you're supposed to do when you're in mass. And then going, no, that's not it. That's not our unique expression. Our unique expression is our creativity. Let's double down on this, right?
So many pieces to explore in regards to what you just said. So one thing I wanted to say also is Eventual Millionaire. The reason why I created it too is it's life first and then money, because I chased money and was unhappy for a long period of time. And so when we can really work on the life and the joy first, the money will be way more fun. Also, just as a side note, because entrepreneurs, I do feel like chase things constantly and aren't ever satisfied, which is, I think, a gift in so many ways. And what I so appreciate you saying is that you're somebody that has a $500+ million company and can say going based on intuition is more important than what Joe Schmo, the strategist that says this is the way you do it. How do we do that, though? Yeah. Especially because with all these gurus telling us all the right things to do, tapping in can be really hard to find out what is you versus what is everybody else saying stuff.
It's not really hard. You're just not stopping. So when somebody is giving you information, notice, how do I feel? Do I feel excited? Do I feel like I kind of want to back off and be out of this conversation right now? Just really notice. You don't have to be a master at intuition. Most people will tell you when something has happened in their life that they didn't want to, like, I knew that was going to happen. It's like, what? Who knew? So there is already a knowing within us. So just really slow down. And as someone's talking strategy to you, which I think strategy is great, but does that strategy work and resonate within you? And I always give the example of it's like taking your child to a doctor. And the doctor says, well, I think his tonsils need to come out. And you're like, I don't know, that feels pretty aggressive. Does little Johnny really need his tonsils out? So you go get a second opinion, third opinion, then you can kind of fill in and you go, actually, I think the problem's dairy. I think dairy is what he needs to get off of first before we take such drastic action. So I think that as if you would claim that if this is your idea, it is your business, that you are the expert and really start exercising your expert energy or expert muscle, then you will realize there is no greater expert in the business than you. That idea came to you, you birthed it. Now, if you take on someone else's business, you're a step parent, there's some things there, but if you birth this idea, you're going to know what to do. So stop acting like you don't. That's another thing. We act like, I don't know. Everybody gets caught up. So we're in fear and we're addicted to drama. We watch it on television. We have it at the office. We gossip. So whenever you take my course, my abundance course, I remove all of that. I remove all negativity, all gossip, talking about other people. Really, it's a drama cleanse for 90 days.
Every human needs that.
Yeah.
Whether you're a business
Nothing
owner
is
or not.
really, yeah, nothing is really that dramatic other than, if you are having a heart attack right now, that's something to really pay attention to. But, if you think back over the past year, I mean, it's like, what do you even remember that was so really dramatic that you remember right now? I can't think of anything. In the moment, it felt really dramatic. It could have, but right now, it's like, so yeah. I think get rid of the drama addiction.
Why do you think we're so attached to that then too? Especially because it feels so real and we're like, oh, it feels real in the moment.
Well, it's adrenaline. So, you got adrenaline versus feeling. Adrenaline is that hype, 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 go, go, go. Let's run, run, run. That's all adrenaline. And we are a society that runs off of adrenaline. Let's just drink more Red Bull. Let's do, more, 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 fit more in. And I'm actually leaning the opposite where I want to do less. I want to do less and less and less. I only work probably 20 hours a week in my office. The rest is a lot of self-care, and I know how to navigate and lead this company, and I can do that within those 20 hours. I'm very potent with my energy. I don't get into drama. A drama spiral is really a waste of time. And when time is my greatest asset, I look at protecting that. And I often say, what if energy were the new currency? What if your energetic state and your company's energetic state were what you value most over anything that is financial?
So what I adore about what you're saying right now is this is one of the reasons why I started Eventual Millionaire, because I was a mom of small children and only had 20 hours a week. And I was like, do we really have to hustle as hard as we are told in order to achieve these big things that we want to achieve? So I adore, and I always look for more females to be on the show, especially ones that really have their own energy and alignment, because and have made so much. I feel like there's a lot of people that have not made a lot but have alignment and can tell us about that. But it's very different for a business owner to hear somebody go, and by the way, my company does extremely well, and I use the exact same tactics, techniques, and intuition to be able to lead, which is eye-opening for everybody.
I do. Yeah, 100%. You will always hear in our executive meetings, you'll always hear, I respect when somebody says something doesn't feel right. My next words are, tell me more. Like, what are you sensing right now? Because, it's not just me, it's our entire company. So I've really taught by example our leadership board to really tune into themselves and see, like, does this feel good? Because what we know is a campaign can work and it cannot work. You don't know. There's so many variables, and our litmus test is it transformational? Is it innovative, and does it break patterns? That's kind of the three things we're into here in our company. If it does all that, then we consider it a win, right? It's like, yeah, we had a great time. We broke some patterns, we transformed some, and we innovated. That feels really good. Anything else is just boring.
So how do you have metrics around that? That's amazing. But companies typically run on metrics. So how does that usually go?
You don't. And it's so crazy. I just built a 30-foot wide, 30-foot tall inflatable poo emoji. And we're taking on tour. And the inside is a whole audio visual experience for letting your shit go. And one of my friends is one of the top supply chain people in the world. I was just with him last week, and he goes, what's the ROI? And I just looked at him like he had four heads, like, ROI? What do you mean? And he goes, what's the ROI? And I'm like, it's awesome. And we're going to have a great time. And he's like, well, how do you justify? Because it's probably $800,000 we'll have in it, not counting the tour. So we'll probably have $1.5 million in it. And I'm like, we're changing lives. We're transforming people. So for us, the ROI is this litmus test. It's transformative, it's innovative, and it's pattern breaking.
How did you get so clear on those? How did you go, this is it?
Well, basically, one of the things that I always tell people to do is that a brand is a living dynamic organism. Okay, a company is a living dynamic organism. When you look at what a corporation is legally, it is an entity. The government and taxes actually tax it as a person, as a being. We don't treat it as such. So the first thing I would do is start writing out. Like Poopery has a whole thing. Like, here's Poopery, here's who she is, here's what she does. We do that for our consumers we're trying to reach. We do it exactly opposite. We do it, who is Poopery? What does she want to be in the world? What's her unique expressions? What's her tone of voice? She's beautiful and prissy, yet talks like a sailor. And so whenever we start writing all that down, we start seeing, oh, she's only interested in transforming, right? So it's transformative and innovative. And we like to break patterns. We're pattern disrupt. We use it before instead of after. So we just sort of went really into the brand, and then you can start seeing the themes, and you can boil it down. And it takes some time, but that's the best way to focus. Don't worry about who your consumer is. Yeah,
that's Steve Jobs talking, right? That's the whole point of, if you really do want to be innovative, that we're not supposed to be listening to all the chatterboxes of what you're supposed to do anyway. But it's scary trying to do that.
Well, you're always going to be scared. Remember, we live on fear. So what would you rather be scared doing?
Making huge poop emojis and having fun. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. And our whole company is like so excited. And it's amazing. Like, I cried the first time I went in and saw it. And several members of our teams are crying. And that to me is a win. Okay. If I can have these, we're doing, I think 20 cities across the US this in Q4. And if we can make an impact in those cities within those people, then we've won.
I love you. You're amazing. So how did you get so sensitive though? Because especially on the journey, you've been doing this for many, many years. I feel like I'm getting better with my sensitivity, but even the slowing down and the listening to intuition, sometimes I just sit there and go, I got nothing. I can't tap in like I want to. And I know not to make decisions from when I'm unaligned typically, and that's hard sometimes too. But how did you get more sensitive to feelings so that way when you're interacting with other people, because I have issues when I interact with other people, I feel like, oh, I'm all in on their vision. This is great. And then I have to go back later and figure out what the heck I thought about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Again, I think that's slowing down, and I'm learning, I'm learning that. I'm a very fast person. But I'm learning to slow down and go, what am I really feeling right now? I think if all of us just slowed down by 20%, it'd be amazing what would happen in our life. Just kind of just slow down. Okay, let's see what's really going on. We can get deeper that way. But the sensitivity, I have weekly therapy sessions. I do EMDR on a constant basis. This morning, for example, my morning is about 3 hours. I had tea. I did yoga, which is more like yin yoga and Reiki. I had an IV drip. And then I meditate every day. That's a non-negotiable for me. So that's the way I start my morning. And that's what I prioritize rather than getting in and making some big business decision. So anyway, sensitivity. Just keep doing therapy. Plant medicines are huge for that. And really being committed to deprogramming yourself. We've been programmed. And when you start noticing your programming and your conditioning, you can start deconditioning yourself, kind of like unconditioning. I guess that's probably the word. But you can start saying, wow, I noticed just this week, I was telling some of my team on the way here today, I said, one of my triggers is when I feel time pressure. I notice I get very flustered, right? It's like, what is that? And when somebody's like, they don't alert me and they're like, oh my God, you have 5 minutes. I'm like, that's pressure for me. So what I want to do is I'm going to go into therapy and EMDR and see what's that about.
I love it. Okay, so I have the time pressure thing also. So what you're trying to do is you're going, as things pop up and my awareness gets better and better, I'll just make sure I actually take the time and effort to, or ease maybe, to go into that and have help with it, so that way I can learn a little bit more. Because I feel like sometimes the awareness is worse, because you're like, I'm doing that thing again. I'm doing it again. Like, I've made it so my children can actually tell me when I'm doing something, which is
Yeah.
Maybe not a good idea because it doesn't always help with the remedy of it. The awareness is definitely there, which I know is the first step. But I feel like the is EMDR like works very quickly, or do you have an inventory of this stuff, or how do you actually manage it? Because there's a lot of programs, not just like one, right?
Yeah, and I think you just go towards what program is turning you on right now. I actually, EMDR for me goes to the top of my list because it actually changes your brain. Cognitive behavioral therapy, the Amen Clinic told me, has no change in your physical brain. So we start thinking of the brain as an organ, and you can see PTSD in your brain. I look at that. So what I found is life gives me what I need to work on in the moment. And that's my priority. Like right now, it's like, wow, I noticed that's a trigger. What is that? So I become curious. And that's how I slowly become more sensitive, is just kind of slowing down. And I think meditation and the plant medicines and therapy really helps you kind of come out and look back down at the experience rather than being so fully in it.
I know plant medicine for my friend had PTSD horribly bad, changed his life completely. Like the amount of work that both that and I've heard a lot about EMDR. I've never actually tried it. Can you actually explain it to people so that way they understand a little bit more about what it is?
Yeah, it's eye movement desensitization response. And basically now it's more advanced. It used to be you move your eyes whenever you go back into trauma. Now there's like buzzers on your ears. A beep in your ear and a buzzer on your hand that alternates. So what you're actually doing is breaking the synapses in the brain. And it's that synapses that we learn from 0 to 7. We don't have our first conscious thought till we're 7 years old. So depending on your life from 0 to 7, that is all programmed. You are learning. So something terrible happens, your brain sees it and treats it no different than that's a tree, that's a fork, that's a spoon. It's like, oh, be scared of that, right? So then you are. And you can go back through and it just actually breaks the synapses in the brain. It's very effective for PTSD.
I love the science behind it though. So it's not like, oh, just plant medicine, spiritual woo-ness. It's like, no. Look at your brain before and after. There's changes that happen and we can measure that stuff nowadays, which is amazing.
There's a lot of science out there with plant medicine. Psilocybin has a huge research, MDMA.
Even the vet places are using them for vets that have PTSD. If the VA hospital is using it, there has to be some sort of science behind it, people, just so you know.
Exactly. So I really hope that we can at least get decriminalization and hopefully legalization of some of these, because I do believe it'll help.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. How do you know when it's quote unquote fixed, right? Because that's the other thing too. It's not really measurable. It's like, I think it went away. Is it going to come back? Like, am I still running it? How do you really measure that or know when you've sort of gotten past something?
I think it's really fun when my experience is life will give us what we need to test it. I remember I had done EMDR on I'm Not Good, and it really came from some old religious programming. And someone had, the next day afterwards, my assistant came and said, oh, someone's not going to come and you do this. And she said that you're not good. And what I realized, I felt such joy and delight hearing those words. There was no reaction in my body. There was no tension. It was like, wow, I'm really glad she's honoring that she's not resonant, and tell her she just gave me a huge gift by sharing those exact words. So my experience is life will show us exactly, and you can see if there's still a trigger, right?
See, and that's the point. Because we get so triggered and so running from our own programs, we're not even really real. We're not really us in making decisions or whatever it is. It's just triggers.
No, it's all triggers and conditioning. And when you start realizing that, that's when you start going, holy, like, who's been making decisions here? Yeah. And no wonder it's so screwed up, right? Yeah. So you start regaining, and you start regaining yourself back, pieces of yourself that you just abandoned a long time ago.
One of the exercises I have clients do is I go, okay, if we're stuck, especially in a state with your own brain and who knows what's in there, right? Can you imagine you being someone else, like a millionaire that I've interviewed in that exact position? They wouldn't have all the second. They'd be like, okay, I'm just going to go do this, right? Without the triggers, without the feelings, without the reactions, because they've either done it before or whatever the reasons are. So if that's the case and it's all stuck in our head, it's not the industry, it's not the conditions, it's not the outside space, then it's something internally that we're working on. So I so appreciate having you tell the story of the before and after, because I don't think people, especially in business, even understand that it's possible to go, that is a trigger of mine, and I can actually get rid of it so it doesn't actually make decisions for me or against me in some ways, right?
That's it. That's it. And also realizing that you are way more powerful than you think. We've given up, and we were, going back to conditioning, but we were conditioned, the parent, the teacher, the politician, everybody knows what we should be doing. And so we didn't get those skills kind of honed into us. Children now are that way. I love the way parenting is happening now. It's more, what do you want to do? Oh, they don't like it. That's great. Because I believe that we're raising a more intuitive culture. I mean, in the communities I've seen, I'm not saying in mass communities, there's still a lot of programming going on, but I believe that people are honoring that more. Because here's the deal. Let's get real. What we've created the past 20 years is killing our planet, is killing ourselves, and most people aren't having a good time.
Which is, why are we on this earth anyway if everybody's just miserable the entire time? This is silly.
That's it. It's not worth it. I got to see both my parents die living unfulfilled lives. It's like, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I want to go for it, because then if I fail, which, like I said, I've had the luxury of losing everything, I know I'm going to be okay. The person listening right now doesn't know that, but I assure you, you're going to be okay. So keep reaching and keep looking inside at what is inside me that's holding me back from doing this. That's what I'm more curious about. Sure, I can jump, but what is inside of me that's keeping me from jumping? Who told that to me? Is that really me, or did someone instill that to me? And it's probably, don't jump off that swing, Suzy, you're going to get hurt, right?
Yeah, right.
It's as innocent as that, someone innocently. So when I'm talking about programming conditioning, it's not that everybody's horrible and you shouldn't go to your parents and beat them up. They wanted your well-being, or what they thought was your well-being, but it actually suppressed us in a lot of ways.
So as a parent, this is what's so difficult. I know that logically. So I'm trying to let my children really understand they're way better at it than I am. So go them, right? About knowing what they want and how they feel as they navigate through this world. But where is the line of having them actually have grit and be responsible and get past the, I don't feel like it mode, right? They're higher.
Yeah, I don't know. Did you ever listen? There's an amazing, we're going to go meta here. There's an amazing podcast from, what is that? The Invisible, do you know that podcast? And there's one about how to become Batman.
Ooh.
Yeah, listen to that, because it's a guy who's blind, and he literally has learned to tone, and he feels the whole room by tone. And what's so amazing about that is he trains people to do that. So I don't know. I raised my kids with a lot of conditioning. I didn't know all of this when I was a young parent, right? I'm discovering it now, and I'm shouting it as much as possible. And I tell my kids now everything I learn, like, honey, I conditioned you to be that way. It's your job to get yourself out of it.
You're like, oops, sorry. We're screwed up somehow. Yep.
And that's another thing. You're not going to be able to do it perfect. Yeah. But there's also an instinct in you. It's like, I don't know. That's hard. That's a tough one. I know I do it a lot here at the office, like just watching and gently persuading rather than pushing. My VP of Creative, she's 30. She's a senior VP. She's 31. She wanted to be a director, so I kept giving her fertile soil, and now she's off directing, shoots all the time. She writes them, she scripts them, she directs them. It's not a big deal to her anymore, but it was a big deal in the moment. She was terrified. And I just kept saying, what are you terrified of? Like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen?
So you're still uncovering. Yeah. So for the children, especially using that tactic when that fear pops up. And what's so tough, though, is when that fear pops up in kids, or in any human, it's hard to manage. You can't really talk. You know what I mean? You have to let it sort of pass through, right?
Well, yeah. And I will tell you, my mentor, Gay Hendricks, taught me something really important about fear. He said, whenever you feel afraid, you need to, number one, see, is there a real danger or a real threat, right? Because fear could be alerting you of something. Yes. And sometimes I will, if it's if I wake up, and I don't do it anymore, but I used to wake up and be like, I'm going to lose all my money, right? That was a big pattern for me as I had been bankrupt
Because you did.
twice.
Yes,
Yes, I
exactly.
did. Yeah, that was a real,
That was
like,
reality.
based
Yeah.
on experience. And I would call my accountant and say, how are we looking? How are we looking for next month? How's our cash flow? Is there anything I should be worried about? And they say no. And then if there's not, realize it's just an upper limit, or it's something that thought is to keep me down, right? And then I can just realize, oh, that's just some silly fear. That's not reality. Again, let's go back and face. So I don't want people to be in denial, thinking everything's going to be wonderful. So if you feel afraid, look around and go, is there anything to be terrified of right now? Probably not. And if there isn't, oh, that's just a limiting fear and a belief. And you can actually start feeling in it. Actually, probably feels a little more like excitement, like standing on the edge of the cliff and you're like ready to jump. Well, of course you're going to be scared, right? You know you're going to be okay, but you know there's that point when your toe, that last toe gets off the rock, and then gravity sets in and there's no reversing. So I actually put people a lot in this course that I'm writing right now. I put people into that moment of when there is no backing up. What's the moment of where you can't undo what you just did towards your dream? I know. Oh, I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah. So I've interviewed Gay Hendricks. So everybody listen to that, because The Big Leap is amazing. And it's so awesome to hear his principles lived out through you, because it's one thing to hear the stories about upper limiting problems when they're already past. Another one being like, and we're going through it right now, and this is what we do. We have to expand out of our comfort zone, and the anxiety and excitement are so close as far as feeling goes, and leaning into the ones that really can serve us instead of backing out is huge. Do you do that thing where everyone's like, oh, get out of your comfort zone every single day, or how often are you pushing yourself energetically?
I don't know about that. It's like those, again, those are other things that's driving us towards something. I more go, what do I want? And then what action step can I take that's easiest, that's around me within my current environment? So not what is, for example, if you want to be a speaker, like, okay, what's an action step you can do right now in this moment? Oh, hold on, Toastmasters is here. That just pops in. The idea is going to pop in. Okay, do that. And then you go Toastmasters and you go, that's not it. Okay, then what is it? Oh, hold on, there's a talk. And what happens is the universe will provide something for you once you start the action. What happens, the reason people sit around and listen, I think, to The Secret and Abraham Hicks, is not that those principles don't work. It's just that we never start moving towards. So when you even start moving towards, and it doesn't have to be that big, scary leap either. It can be literally little baby, tiny, minute steps. And then you will start getting braver and braver and braver as you go.
So how do you deal with right mentality or perfectionism, right? Because it's like, oh, Toastmasters, okay, but that wasn't it. So now I'm not sure, right? And you second guess and you sort of go, what's the right way, right?
So Gay also has taught me there's zero intrinsic value in beating yourself up. So I have learned by default that everything I do is for my learning and growth, or else it wouldn't be in my path. And I really know that. Like, I know it. So I can be in the middle of a really hard experience, and there's a knowing within my being that goes, something really good's going to come of this. And I can still fully feel as I'm going through it, but I know it isn't some spiritual bypass. Like, I literally know I will grow, because that's my commitment, is to learn and to grow through everything that I go through. So again, it's like, oh, that wasn't it. Great. I have more information now. Okay. What do I want to do? Oh, I wasn't as clear. Okay, great. This is what I want. Now I can start moving towards that. And, there is no, you can get through all those cliches, the road to success is a long, windy path. But what happens is people think, I want this point, and then they run so hard towards that point, like I did when I was 38, to realize, like, what have I been doing? And I missed the entire journey. So for me, and it's probably my age, I just turned 55. I vowed to Gay last week, I get a little weepy. I said, I will never miss another sunset. So literally last night I was getting a massage and the sun's coming through the window, and I just sat and I started thinking about just transitions that we forget. We jump from one thing to another and we don't slow down enough to go. There's this beautiful transition time in between things, right?
Yes. And no, and I
Yeah.
don't give myself enough time. It's actually a thing that I've been working on lately because you go from now I'm in business mode, I have to do these things, and I'm like this, and then I go to kid mode and I'm like, I don't even, you didn't take a breath. Like, so now I've been trying to meditate for 10 minutes in between just to like recalibrate myself to know
Yeah.
what that next thing is. But it's
I think
constant. It's constant trying things.
it's constant, and the world's going to tempt you and it's going to lure you. You know, that's what happens. And you keep going back. It's life is a meditation, right? It's like that's what it is. Is that going to get my focus and distract me away, or can I pull back and really center and focus on what I want, what feels good? And my experience is no matter how hellacious the experience is in the moment, always when I come out of it, I have reaped something and I am better than before I went into it. That's what I 100% know because that's my commitment. That's my path. I don't run around telling everybody the drama about it. Sometimes I do. You have your drama friends, but then I go, this doesn't feel good. What feels good is me going in and saying, how is this here to serve me?
That makes everything easier though, because even if the shit hits the fan and you're like, oh, but that shit was worth it, feel better now, right? Then it makes
Yeah.
everything, no matter what is coming at you, be okay.
Or
Which
because
again
you're
is a
always,
practice.
it's a practice and you're always growing.
Hmm.
So it's like, it doesn't matter. Growth is what I want. So I'm growing. It's like, okay, good. Job well done, Suzy. I often tell people this, building this business has been sloppy and messy, but I've grown a lot as a person inside. And that is a greater reward for me than being on some Forbes list. The Forbes list is great. Thank you very much. But you have no idea how rich I am inside.
That measurement and just the permission to go, yes, metrics are great and then can definitely let you know if something is actually going wrong so you can take action if you need to.
Yes.
But what's more important is the internal growth. And I know I'm a overachiever, growth-oriented type entrepreneur, and it's tough when you can't measure it. When you can look back and see, look how far I've come, but it also, you look forward and go, but I have so much more to go because we're never going to be perfect, right?
And again, you might want to reframe that. Are you an overachiever or are you a visionary? And visionaries, I used to call myself perfectionist overachiever, and now I'm a visionary with impeccable style and integrity, right?
Ooh,
And that's the truth. It
that's
doesn't
sexier
matter.
too.
Yeah, it's like, okay, we're going to go there, but how we get there is equally as important as us getting there,
It's the whole
right?
point of Eventual Millionaire. It's about the journey. And as cliche as that is, it's freaking true, right? Otherwise, why live?
And you should change it to eventual billionaire.
I own that also. Yes,
Come on.
definitely.
I need to upgrade it here.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, let's do that. I so appreciate you helping people along their journey. But the main thing is start trusting yourself. Start trusting that you do know more than you know. You got yourself here. You are the expert. No one else can tell you. You can get advice all day long. Keep tuning into yourself, seeing if that makes sense to you. Does it feel good to you? Can you lay your head down at night going, that was a good day. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of what I did. Even if it was sloppy or messy, did I take action to change those triggers or those behaviors? And if I did, that's a damn good day. Right?
Totally
And if you
different
keep
measuring
doing
stick.
that, then eventually you're gonna be on the Forbes list. You're gonna be like, how'd that happen?
That's exactly what everyone needs to hear right now. And I know we have to start wrapping up. I could talk to you all day. What is one action that listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of $1 million?
Yeah, just start dropping whatever's dragging you down. Like, just think of yourself as like you are in, if you're a kite, what is that counterweight that you've done? Is it a relationship? Is it a job? Is it a friend? Is it where's your counterweight? And start removing the counterweight and you're going to naturally fly.
I love it. And that's scary. And then we have to go back and listen to this episode like 5 more times so that way they know what to do when they're scared too, because that
And
matters.
it's all perfect. Yes.
Exactly. Where can we find more about you and especially the course that you're coming out with? Because it sounds perfect.
Yeah, SuzyBatiz.com is my that's my website. And you can see me on Instagram. I'm Suzy Batiz. And I've been monitoring my own Instagram. So if you go on there, you're talking to me, which is good. Facebook and LinkedIn, I might have little minions over there helping, little Suzys. But yeah, and just I do mini podcasts like you, Jaime, just really tuning in and sharing because there is an abundance here. There's an abundance of knowledge that I've gained just going down the road. Like, yeah, and I get it. Love yourself.
Easier said than done sometimes. Make sure everybody that's listening, go subscribe to Suzy's podcast, follow her on Instagram, especially for whenever that course comes out. Thank you so much for taking your time today to be with our listeners. I so appreciate, and with me, I so appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. You're a delight. Keep doing what you're doing.
If you enjoy this show, I would really appreciate your wonderful words of feedback. Go leave me a review. I would love a rating, whatever you can do in the time that you've got. I would so appreciate it.